John Ziegler is a guy that I don't agree with at all on almost any issue. He's the guy who did those fawning set of interviews with Sarah Palin, and then he did some sort of movie about it, and he blames the media for not treating her fairly, and completely ignoring the fact that she's a blithering idiot. And if he can't see that she's an idiot, well, then I got to question his intelligence. I'm keeping it real. Those are my opinions about John Ziegler. Now, he's going to cover a conservative event, the Western Conservative Political Action Conference, the WCPAC, apparently. And he's going to talk to another conservative and challenge him. His name is David Keene, the man he's talking to. He's the head of the American Conservative Union. And David Keene has been involved in a couple of things that, Ziegler finds objectionable. One is supporting Arlen Specter until right before he made the switch to the Democratic Party, not supporting Sarah Palin sufficiently, apparently. But Ziegler has a very, very good point. It's a story we covered on the show as well. Keene apparently was extorting, basically, it certainly appeared that way from the letters that were passed back and forth that are very clear, where the American Conservative Union was telling FedEx, hey, look, we can support you on that legislation for a price. Now, you become one of our sponsors, and then we write a friendly letter saying how important it is for free enterprise and competitiveness and the free marketplace and all that nonsense that your side of this legislation wins. And then when they didn't, the American Conservative Union got pissed, and they backed the UPS version. I mean, it was terrible. It was exactly how Washington works in the worst kind of ways. So in this, we're about to show you the actual John Ziegler interview with David Keene. And in this crazy set of circumstances, I'm totally on John Ziegler's side. So let's watch, and then I'll explain why.
How is it ridiculous?
Because you're ridiculous.
You won't answer.
Ridiculous. I don't have to talk to you.
Well, I understand that.
I had the American Conservative Union because conservatives have faith in what I do.
Despite the fact that you've
against anybody's
endorsed, wait a minute, giving $2,000 to Arlen Specter and bashing Sarah Palin without giving an example of her whining about press coverage.
Why don't you go talk to someone else? Huh? Because I'm not interested in you.
You're the head guy. You're a conservative leader. And here you are treating Arlen Specter better than Sarah Palin.
I'm not treating Arlen Specter at all. He's abandoned the Republican Party, and I'm supporting the Republicans.
The same year that you gave him $2,000.
I didn't give him $2,000 this year.
2008.
He didn't do that.
So within a year. Okay.
He didn't do that.
So he suddenly changed.
He certainly did. Didn't you notice that? Were you out of town?
He was the same guy, Dave.
I see.
The guy who you've supported because of your friendship, which just happens to have business in front of his committees.
That's ridiculous.
And then we have a letter saying that you're offering your opinion via op-eds for $2 to $3 million.
Is a lie. You
the letter
are a liar, and I'm not talking to you anymore. Why don't you take your microphone and him and leave?
So the letter from your guy, Dennis Woodfield, was a lie.
I said this is over. You got it?
Wait a minute.
Over.
Uh-oh.
You're not explaining the letter.
It's over.
The
letter's all been explained.
Explained?
Yes,
How was it explained?
Get out of my face, turn the microphone off, and get out of here.
Why? You're not going to explain a letter that's clear.
I'm not going to hit you, but I'd like to.
You want to hit me? You want to hit me because I'm asking you about a letter that your guy wrote.
Get out of here.
Your guy wrote a letter saying your opinion was available for $2 to $3 million, and then you change your position. So how do you explain that?
That is true.
How do you explain that?
I don't have to explain anything to you.
Well, you don't have to, but he's the head of the American Conservative Union. You ought to.
Security at this hotel?
You're going to get security on me because I'm asking you questions.
Get out of here.
Questions that you can't answer or won't answer.
I'm not answering anything to you because you're a jerk.
I'm a jerk. Because I asked the head of the American Conservative Union. Wait a minute. I'm trying to ask him a question, which you won't answer.
You've been trying to badger me for 10 minutes.
Badger? You agreed to do an interview.
Get out.
I'm not going to leave. I would like to get an answer to the question. David, why won't you give me the answer to the question? What did Dennis Woodfield mean when he wrote that FedEx could have your opinion in an op-ed? What did you mean by that? Do you still want to hit me, David? Do you still want to hit me? I'm not worth it.
Because you're a scumbag.
I'm a scumbag. Because
are you afraid to speak for yourself?
I'm going to do whatever I want.
No, not in here.
What? Cameras not allowed? We have press credentials right here. Come on in. We got press credentials.
No, we can't interrupt.
Why won't you answer the question?
They're speaking to you that in there. It's not
I can't go chasing them all the way to the country.
Why not?
Because you're an asshole. Got that on the air? Asshole. Yes, you are. Now, go.
Because you won't answer a question.
No, because of you.
I'm an asshole because you won't answer a question.
I'm an attorney. I'm going to call the police. You're not invited here. You must leave.
I'm not invited here?
You're not invited here.
I'm not invited here. So,
Just have some decorum.
All right. That'll do it. So, he has press credentials. He is invited there. But if you ask the wrong questions, the powers that be will ask you to leave the premises. And they did. They kicked him out of the conference. He was supposed to be on a panel later. You're gonzo. Okay? He was a jerk. He was a scumbag. And he was an a-hole. Why? Honestly, he asked perfectly legitimate questions. Okay? Now, I'm closer to David Keene on Spectre, obviously, on Palin, obviously, on the Iraq War than I am to John Ziegler. But it doesn't make it questions that are invalid. They're perfectly valid questions. Why did you support Spectre? Just answer the guy. Okay, you thought he was a good guy, and then it turned out he, in your opinion, betrayed you, whatever. Just answer it. Who cares? And the problem is he didn't want to answer it because Ziegler is right. It's on the FedEx issue. And he knew that, hey, you know what? He offered up his so-called opinion for sale for a couple of $1 million. And that's uncomfortable. So he doesn't want to talk about that. And if you ask him those questions, then you're no longer a legitimate press person and you have to be escorted from the building. So, look, I like it when Max Blumenthal does these things at conservative events and he comes from a liberal perspective. And whether I agree with Ziegler's opinions or not, and I don't, I like what he's doing here. He's asking legitimate questions that need answers. He has press credentials. He did it the right way. The only thing you could argue with is at the end when he gets into the room where they're speaking, if it's a disturbance, yada, yada, yada. But you all saw the tape. That's just an excuse. That guy just didn't want to answer that question. So Ziegler, on this front, shockingly enough, you go get him. Okay? You ask those questions and demand answers. JR.
This is my only problem with people like him, though, is they don't really care about stuff like that. How long ago was that? He didn't really care about that stuff until you disagree with him about his main girl, Sarah Palin, or any of the other kind of things. Which it kind of illustrates how much they know all the BS and all the backhanded things that all of them are doing, but they don't really care about it until something hits them personally. Go, you know what? I don't like the way you said that about Sarah. I'm gonna come after you about this other stuff.
No, Jared, that's definitely true, but I actually don't have a problem with that. And the reason for that is, we can't get into the motivations of every press person. Look, it's very important to establish, as we've talked about before, and I just wrote a blog about this, and you should check it out on the website, obviously, theyoungturks.com, about Fox News and how they have to be honest with their audience as to what they are. They're partisan press, right? And John Ziegler is partisan press. But beyond that, then after that, as long as I know where he's coming from, he can ask any damn question he likes for any damn reason he likes. So yeah, he's pissed at Keene over the Sarah Palin thing. So what? He's still asking the right question.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's going to ask the right question next time.
It doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. You're right.
Matt, so, I mean, guys like this, it just doesn't. Now, like you said, you're not trying to be on Ziegler's side necessarily. I'm not trying to be on Keene's side necessarily, because both of them do stupid things, in my opinion. So, but the thing is you only do it now, which means you don't have any principles in the first place. I don't want anything to do with people like that. If you lack principles in the first place, then I don't know what your next motivation is going to be.
No, I hear you. And if you're going to be wary of John Ziegler, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I'll give you the 100% agreement, 0% disagreement. Because Ziegler is the same guy who says the rest of the media has a conspiracy and they're liberal and they wanted to destroy Sarah Palin because of her ideology, not because she knew absolutely nothing. So if you trust that guy to do the right thing, you will be profoundly disappointed, right? Because he doesn't want the rest of the media to follow the same thing he's doing here. In fact, when they asked Sarah Palin 100 times more politely, 100 times easier questions, and she couldn't answer them, John Ziegler's the guy who called those, traps and ambushes and how the media was out to get her. If they did to Sarah Palin what he just did to David Keene, his head would have exploded. Right? So I'm not on Ziegler's side overall. But in this case, he was right. Those were right questions. And what did the guy say? He said, I don't have to explain anything to you. Because he's the power that be.